Hey my friends, what's going on? It's Ultimus. In keeping with our theme and idea here of looking at some of the class changes and talents coming up since all this data mined info came up, we are going to be looking at warriors again, but this time specifically Fury. I meant to look at Fury and arms in the previous video, but it got way too long, so I decided just to keep that one strictly to arms. As you can see here on the web page, this has been flushed out a lot more and things have been detailed, so it's not as plain anymore, which is kind of nice. Icons have been updated, as you can see over here on the PvP talents as well. I will be, of course, making links to the pages themselves in the description for this video, so you can take a look at these all yourself, and of course you have access to the other classes as well. But we're going to go ahead and jump right in to keep this from getting too long, since our previous video was close to 40 minutes, if not more, so I don't really want to do that again. We're looking at Fury today. Fury. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump down into our abilities, our core baseline stuff, and see what we got going on. Block, okay, parry, still makes sense. It's there. Charge functions the same. 20-second recharge, rooting for 1.5 seconds. Generates 20 rage. Okay, execute for Fury. Looks like it pretty much works the same, causing a total of 420% to 350%, or plus 350% physical damage, only usable on enemies that have 20% health or less, obviously. So it's going to attack with both weapons, I would assume still, though there's nothing really indicating specialization. At least if it functions different than arms does, so I'm imagining it's going to hit with both weapons. Bloodthirst still works pretty much the same, restores 5% health, generates rage. Kind of cool. Baseline 40% additional chance to crit. Enrage, still exclusive only to Fury. If you'll take a look here at our arms abilities page really quick here, you'll not see that there, so kind of cool there. Raging Blow, still a core ability. As you can see here too, Wild Strike is no longer in the game, so I say good riddance. I hated casting that spell, and I'm pretty much sure just about every Fury warrior out there could agree. Titan's Grip is in the game. Now, this does confirm some things we were speculating and wondering about. Since we're going to be using these two artifact weapons the entire expansion, how this was going to work out. Were they going to be one-handers? Were they going to be two-handers? I mean, you look at some of the screenshots and the leaks coming out for what the artifact weapons look like for Fury. They definitely look small enough to be one-handers, but with Titan's Grip still here in the core abilities, that makes me believe that, of course, we are going to still be able to dual wield two-handers. So how we're going to be able to swap back and forth between the two, who knows? Because if you look down here, single-minded Fury is still in the game as well. Not to get too ahead of ourselves here. So how again we're going to be able to swap back and forth between the two, that's yet to be seen, but it's there. So that's kind of cool, especially considering that they were trying to keep delving into the fantasy and the kind of the background and really what it means to be whatever spec or class you were playing. It wouldn't have made sense to remove Titan's Grip, since the whole idea of Titan's Grip, if you've grown just immensely strong so you can wield two-handed weapons, and that would just feel like a step backwards rather than forwards if we're trying to progress our character's fantasy. So I'm glad to see that Titan's Grip is still in the game. Enraged Regeneration, seeing it here on the Fury ability tree, but not the arms ability list here, continues to raise my doubts about what's going on with arms. And I don't want to talk too much more about arms because we already did that video, and I still am going to be doing a video on arms, where it's at now, where it's going, and my concerns with it. So again, I don't want to talk about that too much right now, but it's interesting that it seems like arms has almost no way to defend itself. I don't know. So Enraged Regeneration is still here, but it seems to be Fury exclusive. I don't know if it's Prot as well. No, it's not even a part of Prot. So yeah, it is definitely a Fury exclusive. So curious what's going on with that. Now, if you look here, Sky Jump to Halls of Valor. This is our port basically that we have to our class hall. Kind of cool. But I would like to remind you that, jokingly, but also half serious, but mostly joking because I didn't think it was going to be a thing. It sounded too ridiculous to be a thing. I said in a previous video that as a warrior, we better be able to leap. We're just going to jump up, use our massive muscles and strength to leap to our class hall. Like, It's right there. It's a thing. Like, this is a thing we're going to be able to do. We're going to use our massive quads and calves. Apparently, we've been hitting up leg day extra hard in between expansions here, Warlords of Draenor and Legion. And we're going to leap to our class hall wherever we're at. So, there it is. It's kind of cool. It's ridiculous, but I love it. I really do. So, there it is. Headlong Rush is a haste reduction. Oh, haste reduces the cooldown, the global cooldown, and the cooldown of Arms, Mortal Strike, and Thunderclap, Fury, Bloodthirst, and Protection. Interesting. I didn't remember seeing this in the Arms tree, though. I guess it's there. Oh, no, I guess it is there. So there it is. So actually, Warriors actually have a reason to maybe use Haste. I don't necessarily, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say it's going to be the new meta, but it's kind of cool that it's there and it actually does affect the global cooldown of things. So there's an option. Where that's going to go, who knows? We'll find out, but it's there. Rampage, this one is back. This is an old ability back in the day, and they brought it back, but they're changing it up a little bit because it used to be a passive, if I'm not mistaken. But it costs 50 rage. It's an instant cast, requires being a warrior, Fury, and requires a melee weapon. Unleash a series of 5 brutal strikes over 2 seconds for a total of 100% plus 100%, 100% plus 200% plus 200% physical damage. So it stacks. Okay, so the first one, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one. Rampage always deals damage as if you were enraged. So, you'll look here, enrage, it basically increases your attack speed by 100% and damage taken by 30%. So basically, it's going to benefit from that 100% extra damage buff. So in Rampage, I can see getting pretty intense pretty quickly. Heroic Throw is still here, pretty much exactly the same way. Pummel still here, 15-second cooldown. So yeah, pretty much the same. Piercing Howl still around. Whirlwind still here. Pretty much the same there. Single-Minded Fury, already addressed that a little bit when talking about Titan's Grip. Heroic Leap is still 80 to 40 yard range. Pretty much exactly the same way. Meat Cleaver, dealing damage with Warbunk and increases the number of targets that your Raging Blow hits by 4, stacking up to 0 times. That's obviously a bug. Speculating maybe 2 times it'll stack, but increases the amount of enemies your Raging Blow hits by 4. Raging Blow already hits what? No, I guess it doesn't actually hit anything extra. That's fine. So yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, so holy crap, that's gonna add to the cleave pressure for still. Recklessness, Let's Loose a Battle Cry, pretty much works the same way as Arms. Now our Mastery increases the damage done while enraged by 11%, and that's obviously going to increase as our Mastery goes up. And Commanding Shout increases the health, maximum health by 15% of all raid and party members. So pretty cool there. Not really sure what's going on with glyphs because there's a lot of stuff being removed as far as glyphs go. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at our talents. Now, before we do go any further, I will say, just kind of give my initial thoughts on this, looking at just our core abilities and kind of where our talents are at more or less. Fury seems a lot more well thought out and flushed out than Arms does. It seems like the direction that Fury's going is a lot more planned, and it's becoming clearer, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. Whereas Arms still feels like there's potentially a lot of holes or could have a lot of trouble. I mean, just looking at this right now, what we're seeing with Fury, it looks like Fury is going to do a ton of damage. Like, it looks like Fury is just going to be a monster of a spec, which I'm hoping for, because it's been nice, all of Warlords of Draenor, being able to actually have the option of playing Fury, even in arenas. Like, you can actually push, you know, high rating. I'm talking 24, maybe even 2,500 rating plus as a Fury Warrior. I've seen people do it. So the fact that that's an option, when you look at in Mist of Pandaria and back, it really wasn't an option. You had to play Arms. And, I mean, Arms is still kind of the go-to PvP spec simply because of Mortal Strike for that healing reduction. But the way Fury's been functioning lately is the pressure and just constant damage and sustained damage that Fury's been able to put out, and the way it's looking right now is that Fury could actually stay relevant for the entire expansion, which is kind of cool. Now, in our first tier of talents here, the 15 trees, same as Arms, we're having to pick between Shockwave, Stormbolt, and Sweeping Strike. So the idea of, do you want to be a cleave machine or do you want to have some stuns and control? In all honesty, at least for arms, I don't see sweeping strikes winning over shockwave or stormbolt, but we'll see. Again, it depends on what kind of comp you're playing with. If your allies have a ton of other control, so you really don't need all the extra CC, so you can just focus on the cleave damage. And I feel like this does address a pretty gnarly issue with Warlords of Draenor right now, and that is one of the strongest imbalances in PvP is melee cleaves. Melee cleaves are very, very strong, and they have been all expansion. And so, because I feel like a lot of melee classes have a lot of front-loaded, just baseline ability, AoE cleave abilities, and so this might help spread that out a little bit more. And if nothing less, help you decide and be able to get away with whatever playstyle you want to get away with. Do you want to be more of a control spec, or do you just want to be an AoE damage machine? You know what? That's up to you. So, there's that. But it is interesting that Sweeping Strikes is a talent, and it's also interesting that Sweeping Strikes is for Fury and Arms, because for a while it was just Arms. So, there's that. In our 30 tree, we have Seething Rage, which is unique to Fury, just to confirm. There we go. Cool, switching back and forth. It requires, Enrage Regeneration no longer requires a consumes Rage, and its cooldown is reduced by 60 seconds. Oh, interesting. So it reduces the cooldown in half, and it no longer requires Enrage. That's interesting. Bounding Strike. Heroic Leap's cooldown is reduced by 15, so same thing. Basically our old glyph implemented now into just a talent. And Furious Charge, you take 20% less damage after, or for 5 seconds after charging. And I'm pretty sure that was the same as Arms as well. No, it's not. So that is a Fury exclusive. That was my bad. So that's kind of cool. So I could honestly see Seething Rage or Furious Charge just being the go-to talents here. I mean, having the option for mobility is nice. And I guess that would depend on what kind of comp you're coming up against in PvP or in raiding, what kind of situation you're up against. But Seething Rage sounds intense. No longer consumes Enrage, and its cooldown is reduced in half. That's kind of crazy. Endless Rage. You generate 50% additional Rage, so take that talent, you'll probably never be Rage starved. Overpower. So Overpower is not going to be an Arms exclusive. It's back, but it is for Fury and Arms as well. Works exactly the same way, which is fine. Let's see, though. For Arms, 125% physical damage. Okay, there's that. With Overpower, I'm curious if Overpower will attack with both weapons as a Fear Warrior. But then again, we're having to choose between those and Avatar. Overpower is so dang good that I can't really see anything else really. I don't know, but I guess those are kind of tough decisions depending on what your playstyle is. And again, all this looks good or not good depending on it, obviously on paper. So we'll see what it looks like when it's actually put in front of our eyes and we get our hands on some gameplay. Second Wind, still don't see this being very good. I can't imagine in any PvP situation where you're going to be able to get out of combat long enough. Most classes or most teams that you play against have a pet or a dot of some sort. There's no way you're getting out of combat. Like, I could only see this being really useful in BGs. Rated BGs or random BGs, but in arenas, I just don't see Second Wind ever making a comeback if it stays like that. Double Time is dang good. Increase the amount of maximum charges, which is kind of cool, by 1. And then Imposing Roar. Increased Leech is nice, though, too. So we'll see what that Leech looks like, especially for Fury, if we're spamming Bloodthirst, all that good stuff. But Double Time I could just see being at least my go-to talent initially, and then getting a feel for what the meta looks like when we get into the PvP season. In Raging Blows in our 75 tier, Raging Blow now generates 10 Rage instead of costing Rage. That's kind of cool. Frenzy. This is the one I'm very, very curious about. Furiously slash at the target, dealing 100% of attack power as physical damage and increasing your haste by 5% for 10 seconds, and it stacks up to 5 times. So I suppose comparable to the Arms Warrior talent, if we're looking here, I was in the PvP tree, never mind, of Death Wish, which I miss, and I'm actually very glad it's back. It's kind of this one where it's going to stack a buff on you, except this time you don't actually take any more damage, which is interesting. But increasing that haste, which is gnarly, dealing a ton of damage, crazy. And then they're making us choose between that and Blade Storm. So we'll see what all this looks like in there. The nice thing about Blade Storm is it still is a great defensive utility, which gives it a lot of versatility and always makes it a fairly safe choice for whatever spec you're playing in PvP, because just not being able to be polyed or rooted or snared or even getting out of roots and snares is kind of nice. But again, we'll see what all this looks like when we get into the actual gameplay of it all. Fury Warriors are getting an option of Heroic Strike as well. 130% of physical damage, I'm sorry. Heroic Strike gains double the normal damage bonus from Enrage. So it kind of functions similar to the Arms Warrior version. Gains the bonus from Colossus Smash. Instead, this time for Fury, it's going to focus around Enrage, which makes sense since the Enrage mechanic is basically the Arms Warrior's equivalent of Colossus Smash, or I guess that's their unique mechanic as opposed to one another. Into the Fray, you gain 5% haste for each enemy within 10 yards up to... Oh. Well, that's interesting, because that's basically saying, hey, you want to get in there and mix it up, then you're going to get rewarded for it. So a little bit of that like high risk, high reward gameplay idea of like, hey, if you're going to get out there and you're going to fight with a bunch of people, then we're going to reward you for it. Obviously, it's dangerous because you're there around a bunch of enemies, but you're going to get that 5% haste buff for each enemy within 10 yards up to 5 enemies. So that's potentially 25% extra haste just for getting out there and mixing it up with some kids. We'll see what that looks like, especially what the global cooldown looks like, since haste is going to affect the global cooldown of Bloodthirst. That's kind of crazy of just like what Bloodthirst, what's the cooldown on Bloodthirst? 4.5 second cooldown. I mean, potentially we could be looking at just spamming the heck off of Bloodthirst if you can spec into this and get it right, if it's even going to be playable. Unquenchable Thirst, Bloodthirst generates an additional 10 rage. So, kind of cool. Interesting they're making us choose there. Again, I feel like just kind of looking at the talents now, I can see why they're doing what they're doing, and I'm getting what they're putting out here. It's kind of strange at first looking at your talent trees and thinking, what the heck is going on here? I think that's just because we're so used to looking at the themed rows. So, it's interesting. In our 100 talent tree, Carnage. Rampage deals 20% additional damage and consumes all of your remaining rage to further increase this damage proportional to rage spent. So just a flat-out buff to Rampage. Just crazy. I could see Rampage being your big, like, melee hit ability. Because it doesn't say it has anything to do with the cooldown. Interesting. I also don't know what that tongue thing was. Please forgive me. That was the weirdest thing I think I've ever done on camera. Moving on. Reckless Abandon. Reduces the cooldown of Recklessness by 50% and causes it to generate one. Whoa. So, talk about setting up some burst. Reduces the cooldown of it by 50%. So, Recklessness already has a 1 minute cooldown. So, we're talking a 30-second cooldown on Recklessness. Plus, whenever you pop it, it generates 100 rage. Talk about setting up burst. You're going to pop this bad boy. You're going to use this reckless. You're going to have Recklessness up every 30 seconds. Last for 5. So literally, there's only going to be a 25-second window up every time between when you have Recklessness up. That's 100% crit. Every 25. What the heck? And just gives you 100 rage. Holy cow. Like, pop that, some potions, some other cooldowns. And I mean, that with Rampage alone is going to be gnarly. Raging Blow, holy crap. And then Dragon's Roar. I feel like Dragon's Roar is like the redheaded stepchild at this point. It wants to be a part so bad, but it just can't compete. They keep putting Dragon's Roar in a place where it's just not even a viable choice. I mean, they're going to have to make Dragon's Roar do a ton of damage. Roar explosively dealing 165% of attack power, damage to all enemies within 8 yards, and increases your... Oh, see, there we go. Increases your damage done by 20% for 6 seconds. Damage ignores all armor and always critically strikes. So that's enticing. Now, comparing all three, I just don't still see how Dragon's Roar is really going to be able to compete with either of these. But that's incentive. I mean, and Dragon's Roar is a Fury Warrior exclusive. ARMS doesn't have it. It's just Fury. So, still kind of cool that it's in the game. I want to see if it's still viable, because looking at this tree right now, I don't see how it's going to be able to compete with Carnage or Reckless Abandon. But there it is. Crazy. So, looking at all these right now, I just feel like Fury is a little more flushed out, better planned, and has more of an idea, and it's a little more set in stone of the vision they have for it, and it kind of has an idea of like it knows who it is, what it is, and where it's going. Whereas ARMS, I'm not sure yet. The implication I can get from ARMS is still emphasis on some AoE damage, or being able to swap between single target, but I just don't see the defensives. I want to know what our AoE pressure is going to be like. Is it going to fall off toward the end of the expansion like it always does? I don't know. I'm not going to get into it too much here, but it's interesting. So, Fury's looking dang good, and Fury sounds like a butt ton of fun. Just to throw that out there. Theory sounds like a whole lot of fun. Now, let's move on to our PvP talents. A little bit more flushed out, so it's a little easier to read and stuff like that, so which is kind of nice, so we don't have to worry about trying to figure out which is which. And it looks like our top tier for every class is pretty much the same. If you look over here, the first tier, or the first row, I should say, is always the same for each class, which is totally fine with me. So we got Gladiator's Medallion, Adaptation, and Relentless. Right? Want to make sure I'm not going crazy over here. Yeah, so same every spec, doesn't matter. So basically, again, this is your PvP trinket. As it is now in game, it's just no longer a purchasable item. Instead, it is a baseline PvP talent. Adaptation, same thing as with arms. Full loss of control effects with a duration of 5 seconds or longer will be removed shortly after being applied. This effect has a 1.5 minute cooldown. And then Relentless, duration of all incoming crowd control effects reduced by 25%. I just see these two, Gladiator's Medallion or Relentless, being the go-to specs or talents of choice. So we'll just pick Relentless for a sec here. In our next row, and again, you gotta remember, these are gonna unlock like a column. Can I reset these real quick? Doesn't look like I don't see a reset button, which is fine. So you're basically gonna unlock these like in this direction, but they're gonna unlock in a column, which is interesting. So hardiness, while above 80% health, you take 20% less damage. Reinforced armor health is increased by 10%, and sparring physical melee attacks have a 20% chance to be blunted, dealing 50% reduced damage. So again, I could see these being very situational depending on what comp you're going to be coming up against, which is kind of nice to have the option. Though I will quote my buddy, and by buddy I mean he's not really a friend, but I admire his input when it comes to PvP. But I will quote Sidu on this. I'm thinking between the talents that we have in our baseline trees and then the talents we have here, not including whatever talents we have in our artifact weapons, how are we going to have enough time to switch these around in the window we have between like when the arena match is starting? Because sometimes you're waiting around for the last enemy to spawn anyway, so you have no idea what you're fighting. I hope that Blizzard takes this into account and maybe extends the window on that time frame that you're sitting in the waiting box there waiting for the match to start, if even by just 10 seconds. That alone I think would be just great, simply because like there's so many options here and you're gonna want to switch these around depending on what comp you're fighting. There's no way you're gonna cookie cutter this, so there's just a concern there on that one. So hopefully we'll see that coming around. Next row here we have Death Row. You can now execute targets at or below 25% health, so which is, it's kind of nice because that's the one thing Warriors have going for them, is their execute is great. I mean, other classes have an execute type mechanic, but Warriors have always done it best, and I like that they're emphasizing the execute this time around as well, though I hope it doesn't get out of control, because I know in Warlords or Draenor it's been a little overpowered. I mean, I've been enjoying it, I'm not gonna lie, because it actually works. But I do see the potential for it to get out of control, and I feel like it's right on that cusp of being out of control right now in WoD. Blood Hunt. When within 10 yards of enemies at execute range, your movement speed is increased by 50%, and all snares are suppressed for 5 seconds. So pretty much the same thing as arms. So just again, giving you kind of an idea of... These I'm seeing more of a theme to rather than our talent trees. So they're kind of keeping theme rows, but not really. So they're still in the game with PvP talents, but it seems like they're not doing it with the regular talents, which is fine, because this whole row, if you look, is about execute. Death Sentence. Execute now has a 15-yard range, causing you to charge to the target when used. I just like this concept, I do. And again, it's just like, I don't know. I know a lot of people are going to be upset about it, but I like that they're buffing execute in PvP, because that's a lot of times that's the trouble. It's like, oh, I got execute, but they got away. So being able to bust that would be kind of nice. I could see Blood Hunt being used a lot, in all honesty. Compared to these three here, I could see Blood Hunt just being the go-to one, because I mean, if it's going to increase your movement speed by 15%, and roots and snares, or all snares are just suppressed for 5 seconds, that's just, it's kind of crazy. The extra charge is nice. The utility of that is going to be great, I can tell you right now. Next row of our PvP talents, Rage Machine. Attacks against you generate 5 rage. So again, just the whole idea of like you're just going to get out there, take more damage, then you're just going to generate rage. Again, I like that concept and I like that mechanic, because again, as a warrior, like my whole thing is I want to get out there and mix it up. If you've ever PvP'd with me, and I know a couple of you on the channel that watch these videos have, I have a really bad habit of just going just like balls to the wall, and I play so aggressively, and that's not always a good thing. I understand that, and I've pissed a lot of healers off, so please forgive me if you've ever PvP'd with me and you're just like, dude, you need to calm down. I've had a couple people be like, no, it's the best thing ever, so, you know, mixed reviews. I know I'm a warrior, I do what I want. But being able to get out there, and again, the idea of being rewarded for actually being out there and in the mix, not hiding behind a pillar, trying to line of sight people is kind of nice. So just adding to that mentality of you are a warrior, you are a juggernaut, you are out there chopping fools down. And so if the more they hit you, the more you're going to generate rage. So just that whole concept I think is nice. And it just has attacks against you, so I don't know if it's going to be magic attacks, just melee attacks, whatever it is, but there it is. Tenderizer. Auto attacks against targets above 80% health generate 5 rage. And then ready for battle, rage gained from charge is increased by 15%. Or by 15, my bad. Ready for battle or rage machine I can see being the go-to mechanics or talents there. I don't see Tenderizer really winning out between the two of those, unless I'm just narrow-minded here. It's a cool concept, but I feel like once you get into PvP, it's very rare that you're fighting against someone that is above 80% health, so there's that. Although it is a nice way to start a match off. I'll say that your opener is going to be strong with that, so I guess that's one thing to consider. So maybe there will be a little bit more of an option there between all three of these. We'll see. Leap. I'm not really sure what's going on with that. I don't know if that's a bug, but if you can read that, that says 100-yard range instant. So I don't know if that's going to buff Heroic Leap to where it just means your Heroic Leap literally lets you leap 100 yards. That sounds broken as butts. But maybe that's their way of making sure warriors can kind of compete with Demon Hunters since they can double jump. I don't know. But we'll keep an eye on that one as that gets flushed out. We get a better tooltip on that one because that just sounds bonkers. Temper Control. Enraged Regeneration's cooldown was reduced to 30 seconds, but now only heals 15% of your maximum health. So interesting. So we're getting this along with our other talent. That's interesting. So I wonder if you would want to stack those or why you would. So it's kind of cool. I guess you're getting the option of one or the other. Can stack them. We'll see. Thirst for Battle. Bloodthirst clears all snares and increases your movement speed by 15% for 2 seconds. Oh, crazy. Yeah, for sure I can see Leap or Thirst for Battle being the go-to ones here for sure. Holy cow. Clears all snares. Wow. Slaughterhouse in our last row here for the Fury Warrior talents or PvP talents. When you use Bloodthirst, the damage is increased by 1% of the cooldown, and the cooldown is reduced by 1 second for every 1% health the target is missing. Crazy. So again, we looked over that a little bit when we looked at the arms PvP talents, and we had them all just kind of stacked in that very cluttered window there. So now we understand Slaughterhouse is for Fury, which makes sense. But it's crazy. Damage is increased by 1%, and the cooldown is reduced by 1 second for every 1% health the target is missing. Bonkers. Endless Rage increases the duration of your Enrage effect by 2 seconds, and your Raging Blow refreshes the duration of your Enrage. Oh, wow. So as often as you can Raging Blow, it's going to just refresh the duration of your Enrage. So you might, I mean, depending on how this works, you could almost keep permanent enraged. I mean, obviously it's gonna fall off with CC and stuff like that, but the amount of time you're going to keep your Enrage up is kind of crazy. Although you might not necessarily want to, because again, if I remember correctly, while you're enraged, you're going to take more damage anyways. That's interesting. Hey, there's the reset button. That's kind of cool. We found it. And then Death Wish, which is... Oh, I guess Death Wish is only for Fury. I thought Death Wish was arms. That's fine. Increases your damage done by 5% at the cost of your health. Stacks up to 5 times. So again, just more of those stacking mechanics. Crazy. So again, just to further prove my point, I feel like Fury looks a little more flushed out and put together than Arms does. So we'll see. I don't know. Yeah, overall, I feel like comparing Warriors to just some of the other classes and stuff I've looked at, I don't know how I necessarily feel about Warriors right now going into Legion. They don't look like they're in a terrible spot, which is comforting. But at the same time, part of me is wondering how exciting they're going to be compared to other classes. Because just even looking at Warlock stuff and Shaman stuff alone is like, wow. Like, they seem really cool. And I'm not really sure about Warriors, except for Fury. Fury seems like it's going to be in a better spot. Initially, just looking at the on-paper type stuff here, as opposed to Arms. But I think I'm going to wrap this one up because we are pushing that 40-minute mark here at 35 minutes. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Sorry again this video was so long, but I don't really know how I could have shortened it. It seems like it's worth talking about. I'm enjoying having all this stuff to talk about as we get closer to Legion. Hoping, maybe, possibly, somehow I'll be able to get into the alpha that they got out right now so I can maybe get some Demon Hunter footage for you guys. I just want to be selfish for that. I want to play it myself, but I also want to record it because I'm sure you guys would want to see it as well. But yeah, so that's pretty much going to do it for Warriors. I'm not going to look at Prot because I just don't see Prot having much of a place in PvP. If I'm wrong, well then, sorry. But I just don't see it being a thing, especially with Gladiator stance just being gone. You can guarantee I will more than likely be looking at Shaman and Paladin stuff for sure, especially at least Enhancement and Holy. Probably take a look at Death Knight stuff as well, and if any of you guys request any other classes and stuff, I might see if I can get around to doing those. I definitely want to find the balance between doing the content I want and, of course, doing the content that you guys want to see, so please don't hesitate to put it in the comment section. But this is going to do it for this video, so I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed. If you did enjoy it, please leave the video with a like, a comment. Go ahead and give it a share if you think some of your friends, family, coworkers, acquaintances, people you ride next to on the subway would enjoy the video. It does help out a lot. And yeah, so that's going to do it for me. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.